Okay, hey, training plants every day. This is going to be STEM number 2 in this video series. Now, again, I kind of cut some short material into there. I didn't necessarily go down all the rabbit holes that would be necessary for what job I'm setting up into. And again, I'm doing it in this vague process. And again, it's a lot of that power of 3 that Tesla deals with, but I change it out. Again, I call manufacturing STEM. I call OSHA STEM. It's just what I'm good at. Each are seed environments that have systemic processes. The better safety operating you have, the more consistent product you have. The more consistent product you have at the managerial level, the safer it's going to be. And each of them are, if we backtrack that thing to what I was talking about to mini a Bitcoin or Hunter's Prize, it's kind of like that. Here's the mainline energy that turns the turbine. The turbine has computers in it that rate how much is going through it, and again, all that can be broken down into those 3 essential points, right? That has 3 essential points, and this is matrixing, computer programming, everything, and how the human body can very easily integrate into this. You know, how you program a robot to deal with a wind shear has to have a sensor go off to better program it, and only when that sensor goes off would it do something. And again, it's still only like 3 moves. And when that sensor picks up onto it, a new programming language comes off, which might have a manufacturing millions of different points into it, just like assembling a table leg or just like assembling on a tread line or something to that effect. You know, again, it doesn't matter if you're using forklifts, or running gantry saws, training crew, all of those things still are going to fall into this idea, which again, you can't really supplement this idea without experience. It's one of those things. We're on a Newtonian curve here. Human body, we're born, we have to build out here. And again, I'm not going to get too much into psychology with you in this video, potentially. But the idea here is that we're looking for anthropes. I talk about them usually in this process of you're standing here. This is always where you build that common program. Average, I'm looking to just do this board. And then I might do a different board which still follows this same process. Or I'm doing a different machine that still has that same concept. And again, whether I'm programming that machine or if I'm a piece of that program in that machine as a sensor, you know, we're still dealing with that simple matrix. It's just this really kind of elegantly beautiful system here at the quantum physics level, if you will. You know, we ain't got a lot of what we're looking at right at this point. I can't really determine what that is because I'm not working at one of these places. This is just the general labor version of it, or the general relativity version of it. Again, how you want to process that. And general relativity and special relativity, again, are essentially the same thing, except for you're adding a new calculation, a new sensor into that machine. Is if you know about quantum mechanics and things like that, one of the biggest quests that they have is taking quantum mechanics and making it flow like general relativity. That's what this idea is. I just find that it works really well in companies and in manufacturing processes instead of hadron colliders that are making billions of dollars to do the same thing that I'm going to teach you right here. That's STEM. Seed is the environment, or excuse me, seed is not only the apple, the company, gravity, but it's also the machine work that you're putting to it that says, well, this machine has apples and gravity and all kinds of other things that go into it. I kind of butchered that one a little bit, but hang with me, it gets better. You know, as we're processing this, you know, I make it sound like, you know, I really don't have a lot of, in that last video anyways, a lot of hands-on experience. I sound more like a quantum physicist here that does better with programming, things like that. Well, that's not the truth. You know, you want to be very well-rounded. A lot of ground guy experience, handling stone, working weed eaters. You know, I've been around the mulberry bush here. The burning bush, if you will, because any one of those processes are lit on fire. You know, the CNC machine is basically, I hate to use the metaphysical reference like that because not everybody likes it. I personally don't like it, but it works great for conversations like this. That machine's only one step from being on fire this moment. I mean, literally, you know, it could burn down right now if you don't know all those extra calculations like Sun Tzu was talking about. This piece of machinery not only is a great matter to this nation, but all the machinery parts that make it up are also great matters. One is general, some are very special, or some are very special, and we're talking about a general point inside of it. You know, again, this quantum mechanics, it's big, it's little, the universe is everything, but it's also this one resistance point that goes against force, and where force is greater than it in Aristotle and physics, or something like that. You just got to pick up this stuff as you go along. You know, it's just when I'm doing a stone dock or even working shovel, and to make money out of that, that's the force. The resistance is how I make money out of that. So there is no such thing as general labor. It's all managerial. All right, see how big that thing is for how little it is? All right, same thing goes into no matter what you're doing. And the more you get accustomed to that, you know, that there's time, you know, even working a shovel, there's time systems, you know, of working quote jobs, and again, safety systems. You don't want to overload the vehicle. You don't want to, whether it's a big truck or something like that, you want to make sure that those time systems, doing that truck 10 times, or how far it has to drive, or knowing those numbers are exactly what they are, so you can max out the performance the best it can be, instead of just, well, I'm not really paying attention to that calculation, those digits, those numbers, because you start losing stuff. You know, I start getting hungry. You know, lose my house. You know, all kinds of other things that'll come into that. There is no such thing as general labor unless you don't understand this number, a rational number. And again, you know, the number of science is the process of taking everything and turning it into nothing. A equals B, A equals 0. And psychology is the theory of taking nothing and turning it into everything. All right. Well, again, here's those two numbers that you're dealing with. You know, again, I don't consider myself any more intelligent than anybody else, but I got the scars, so that usually smartens you up pretty quick. You know, you got to learn from what hurts, and everything will hurt you. Usually, without going too far down the rabbit hole, again, a lot of that stuff becomes this automated system, which, you know, you wind up firing everybody and doing everything until you just, as a general, go, all right, I'm going to stabilize it right here. I like having 10 crew, or I like having 50 crew. That works. It works for my community. It's this much larger general relativity against Sun Tzu, if you will. God is government, essentially. Calligraphy and all kinds of different things. Inventions, you know, why the farmer is involved in a lot of this stuff. You know, you just kind of got to get accustomed to saying, I don't want to screw up the numbers too much, but if I don't do nothing with it, it's not going to stabilize this molecular movement. And at the end of the day, this is all moving. So the idea is not to stop it. It's not the idea to ramp it up so much that, you know, nothing can, it creates a black hole and kills everything, you know. Or, you know, goes critical mass, and there you have atomic, you know, a nuclear bomb going off. But essentially, you know, that's to say, if you don't understand one of these particles, one of these movements, one of those things that with safety standards or managerial skills, that they can have an effect that's dark matter, right? What I mean by that is, you know, in the Hadron Collider, you know, this is just some study I've been out for a while. Got to keep the brain fresh here. Do it something else, science and psychology, or where I was going with it. But hey, I got to work doing something real quickly here. But essentially, you know, even though you may not understand that there's a nuclear bomb going off, you know, this is a war against that system, a weighing a resistance, that can have a nuclear effect, you know, with energies. You know, you might not be aware of how much that crater really affects your system until you start to understand it. And then you go, whoa, I paid attention to those numbers, so I reduced the size of that impact zone. It makes me money. I have better time systems. I do one of those things. And again, it's hard from this perspective in case somebody does ever watch this. You know, remember, I'm coming in. I get the number, so I'm on stipulations, so don't be too worried about that. But with that being said, I don't ever, usually you got to go to the boss or use the channels that are necessary. But again, you know, if you don't understand these numbers, they can have atomic effects that you do every day. You know, why is my phone ringing? Why are people not showing up to work? They can be nuclear explosions, essentially, just on a smaller scale. They don't have radioactive fallout. They're not 10 megatons worth of TNT until you start to calculate those numbers a little differently. And then you go, wow, yeah, honestly, that was like a nuclear bomb going off in my shop. I don't want that to happen again. What do I got to do to learn? And again, that's what you're looking at. That's how I look at a company. That's why I pay attention to these time systems. Because if I don't pay attention to those numbers, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb on my promotion. Nope. So you got to really pay attention to those numbers. You know, nuclear bomb on my raise. You know, throw it right in the black hole. Done. Game over. um, so you know that's the metaphysical psychology behind it. Though why I do what this is. Um, I gotta sneeze here. Anyways, um, so again, you know, I look at a lot of places. You know, I'm always trying to check your manager. You know, it's one of those things. You know, it's either to improve that managerial skill to make my life easier, or to make my life easier by other means. But usually, I'm a nice guy. Um, it doesn't usually come up. I'm pretty straightforward when it comes to it because this is a big part of it. You know, you got to realize all the numbers aside from the system, you know, it's always going to zero out whether there's a big bang or there's not. We started from something. You learn as you go, and you have to deal with that. One of my favorite quotes to that is, you know, I always learn from the generals that are in front of me. Um, you know, you can't be an emperor of this small piece of a system. This is my machine. You ever heard of somebody say that? Well, working for a company, and even that boss will respect that notation. You're an emperor of this conversation. You know, I know all the numbers and all the time systems. I'm not going to get replaced. Nothing under that standard. Just like on the invert of it, where you are the emperor of the system. You know, you allow somebody to do that. You know their calculations. You trust them. You do all those things. And managers do all that system to say that's why this machine is doing this and that and the other jive. All about that. I kind of butchered it there at the end. I wanted to do it a little different, but I screwed it up a little bit. Um, to this, but again, it kind of goes to again without a better standing for a seed, stem, swag notation, which again, you know, for the people, I just have to do it here in my marijuana garden. I didn't pick it up here. I actually had it through something else. It's a business model of mine, Swag Incorporated, Scientific Wild Ass Guess Incorporated, which is seed, a space of exact energy design with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It doesn't matter. Cutting grass, growing the ganj. You need nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, time systems, a serious regimen to eat as much of your life as much as the corn you're growing or whatever it is, because that's going to make the best product as you can. It may not look like that stuff matters until you actually start to calculate it. This is the photon in the box here. Photons don't have mass. The box doesn't have mass, but yet these calculations have matter. All right. And if you didn't calculate that, that's the difference of, well, I didn't care. I didn't water it on any kind of regimen, and that's why my corn is only this big. But yeah, I just watered it, and it went this big, really big and healthy. I use nitrogen, and I followed a specific regimen to that, and now my corn is this big and this big. And that can be the difference. You know, it's nuclear, essentially, inside that corn plant. All right? And it's a lot of those calculations I picked up. You know, you got to have your house life worked out. You know, when you're eating, when you're sleeping, when you're doing things. Even even if you want to try to not do those things, you got to plan 2 weeks in ahead to take a vacation. You know, it's just sensible that you do those things so you're not just gridlocking this system, smashing into the wall with a lot of these things, or killing your body. You know, because some of these things are very physical and picking up, 70, 80, 90-pound stones, how you carry your body every single time you do one of those stones. So you can make it a 10-hour day hauling treads, working a shovel, all day, cleaning mud out of gantry bays and stuff like that. You gotta know how to take care of the order of the regimen, these great matters that only your shovel work, or only, water and something, when you drink, how you take your break, what do you eat for lunch. You really got to take those things into consideration. It isn't all that big, it happens like that. I said it in the other video. The only thing common about common sense is the lacking of it, and that's what makes generals. That's what makes emperors and kings and people who study, you know, higher things while they're working machinery in a regular shop. You know, it's what that works out to be. So, catch you on the next one.